everyone. I welcome you all to another episode of Dr. HR. I'm Bhavya Ray, a young HR practitioner, and I really hope all of you and your close ones are doing well and keeping safe. The global pandemic has transformed the entire market game. And while the hybrid work model is likely to be the new norm, it surely presents ample of opportunities for organizations and leaders across industries to rethink their position in the market, revise their goals, and has certainly motivated us to create more tailored responses to workforce challenges and shortcomings. In this present scenario, leaders across industries are devising models and engineering interventions to best meet the evolving skill demands to improve the overall efficiency of the operations. It all comes down to the talents. How good people are in a set, a topic of focal point discussed in one of the previous Dr. HR episodes. Now, what makes a talent in an organization? It is their competencies to perform that role, be that role, give that role a living form, and achieve much more than just their targets. And today's session revolves exactly around this. Competency mapping, a topic extremely pertinent yet riveting in nature. Now here I go throwing these HR jargons. But what exactly does a competency or competencies mean? What are the characteristics that define it? Competencies are the skills, behaviors, and knowledge, all in all performance standards that turn the what of an expectation into how. Business owners can use core competencies to define the business culture, support strategic goals, make hiring decisions, facilitate learning and development to ensure utmost productivity. Competencies are measurable and could be identified, hence further developed through trainings. They are even breakable into smaller criteria. Now, competency mapping is an approach that has the objective of helping an organization align individual development with the strategic objective of the company. It is a critical process, a strategy focused on identifying and evaluating the competencies of employees in a structured and repeatable manner. Many competency mapping models break down strengths into two major categories, functional and behavioral. The first set is the functional competencies, which is the technical skills, the hard skills, the practical knowledge and incumbent needs to perform the job. The second set is the behavioral competencies. It is the interpersonal skills, that is the attributes such as teamwork, leadership. All of these are the interpersonal skills. What is the objective of doing this? Why should one invest time in this activity? What is the purpose? The main purpose of competency mapping is to ensure effectiveness of an organization in terms of having a clear idea regarding the summation of the required competencies. There's a saying that stands true almost always. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. Now let's review some of the objectives of facilitating such a strategic exercise. Number first is identifying the key success factors. Second being pinpointing triggers for each role. Third, laying direction for superior performance. Fourth, setting defined expectations from employees. Fifth, serving means for communicating performance expectations. Sixth being ensuring that the employees obtain greater transparency about their roles. Seventh is providing opportunities for development. Eighth, creating a more empowered workforce. And ninth, employing the workforce effectively. Now, all these 9 objectives further facilitate into number 1, gap analysis and competencies, number 2, role clarity, number 3, selection, potential identification, growth plans, number 4, very important pointer, that is succession planning, number 5th, restructuring, and then finally having in place an inventory of competencies for future planning. Now, you see, whenever there's a topic in discussion, especially when it affects talents across organizations, functions, as well as levels, we are bound to have subjectivity, our own tailor-made practices catering to different leadership styles. But what's really objective is our expectation as well as the standard of the outputs with respect to the desired skills, knowledge, and a set of right behavior we believe and we factually know should outline a job role. Now, a very interesting dogma. We believe a JD has it all. It has all the common skills and the responsibilities required to perform a task. What else is needed to set right expectations for both the employer as well as the employee? Sure, we have KRAs also in place. Shouldn't JD and KRAs be enough for role clarity? With this question, I move on to the most relevant piece that marks this video. That is, to challenge and negate some of the misconceptions around competency mapping. We like to call this part Debunk My Myths. Now that we've established what competency mapping really is, what is its purpose, and have even established its tangible value addition when implemented correctly. Now let's debunk some of the myths. Myth number 1. We already have a JD in place. Then we have KRAs that defines one's role and what is expected out of them. And then skills and competencies are synonymous. Why waste time and resources on such an extensive exercise like competency mapping? I'll tell you how it is. Give you a real picture. Job descriptions include a list of skills we call core competencies needed to be successful in that position. Now, companies will use these job descriptions to advertise externally. But how did we identify those core competencies for the JD specific to that role? Copy-paste from standard market JDs? Use generic skills? No, that's not the ideal practice. What's ideal is identifying the right unique core functional and behavioral skills for each of the roles, and then you create the JD. Another important point to be noted. A major difference between skills and competencies is one of scope. Competencies are much broader than skills. Skills are specific to a task, while competencies incorporate a set of skills with abilities and knowledge. Skills are just one of the 3 facets that make up a competency. The other 2 are knowledge and abilities, and they have a behavioral aspect to them. In business, competencies are the effective application of a combination of skills. Myth number 2. There could be so many competencies that would help improve our organization. We shouldn't put a limit. Why limit the number of competencies? The more, the merrier. Absolutely incorrect. There's a reason we call a certain set competencies core, because they are the must-have, the backbone of that particular role. How we have job families, within each we have unique roles. The hired incumbents would be expected to perform their unique roles and responsibilities as per their role demands. So if there's a variation to jobs that are well defined in paper, we would need more tailored set of core competencies required to perform those jobs efficiently. Also, the idea of competency mapping is not to make a dictionary of skills, but to identify the core skills and must-have behaviors that would define success. First for the incumbent, and then for the function, and then for the organization itself. With fewer core competencies, tracking and tracing them while implementing the model, as well as identifying the training needs and facilitating the training sessions, would become much more objective and transparent. Myth number 3. Core competencies are static and undeviating. Absolutely wrong. Nothing is set in stone. With these evolving times where we are constantly tested on our preparedness to manage and flawlessly accept change and strategize to make these change somehow work for us and make it look effortless. With a workplace full of diversity and different generations all coming together, in the times that requires us to embrace what is called a hybrid model of workspace, change is inevitable. And so we need to move towards what is unconventional, what works the best not only for our organization or not only for us as managers and leaders, but for everyone. And also, as agents of change, the onus is on us to upgrade the competencies that best suit the changing climate of business and the global market. New generation, new workspace, the evolving culture and times demand not old age, but new unconventional methods, new skills that define what good really looks like. Myth number 4. We can just pick the best competency framework model in the market that has proven to work the best for the winning firms in the game. This will save us time and resources. Now, is this right? No. Absolutely wrong. If we rely too much on external sources while benchmarking what is best for us and use it as the foundation instead of using it as an example, we are doing it the wrong way. Success comes in all shapes and sizes. What works for them might not work for you, and vice versa. Each organization is different in its shape, size, culture, norm, and especially unique when it comes to their diverse job families and role expectations. Now, within this unique organization, there are so many unique roles with their own requisite set of hard and soft skills, behavioral attributes, and expectations. Hence, knowing what is the best practice. Now, using that knowledge to curate what works the best for you, for your organization, and specifically for those unique roles in your organizations. How do you define success? Define what good looks like to you in your organization and build your model around that. As HR practitioners and industry experts, I'm sure you yourself would have come across such notions and myths. So do comment them down below and enlighten our community. I hope this video was informative. Stay tuned for more Debunk My Myth on so many more HR-centric topics. Till then, adios.